Welcome to The Politicrat. I'm Omar Moore. It is Sunday, August the 9th, 2020.
You are here to say goodbye to us, and we don't have a good word for it in English. The best is au revoir. We'll see you again.
That was Richard Nixon leaving the White House on August the 9th, 1974, some 46 years ago today. We'll see you again, he says. Well, you will hear from him again, by the way, in this episode of The Politicrat, which focuses today on two key and main areas. One, it is not a sure thing that Joe Biden wins this November. And it is important to say that, even as I have declared for at least a year and a half now, if not longer, that whoever the Democratic nominee was going to be would win. In fact, even before there was a Democratic race, that is how I felt. But it is not a sure thing, despite what you are seeing on your TV screens, poll after poll after poll. The other focus of this episode is this question: are you a racist? That and two more states for voter information: New Hampshire and New Jersey.
But when the president does it, that means that it is not illegal. By definition. Exactly.
That was Richard Nixon in 1977 in an interview with the British television journalist and presenter David Frost. Well, when the president does it, that means that it is not illegal. That is what Richard Nixon said in 1977, 3 years after he left the White House in ignominy and disgrace. Richard Nixon, in those words, is somewhat prophetic, because we are seeing president after president, particularly on the Republican side, some on the Democratic side over the years. I mean, even before Richard Nixon uttered that statement, we saw this with Truman. We saw this with FDR and the executive order on interning Japanese Americans in camps in this country. We've seen this with George W. Bush and his illegal wars. We've seen this with the neoliberalist presidents as well. Some of the things that President Obama did overseas with Libya and bombing Libya, and Secretary of State at the time, Hillary Clinton, saying what she said about Iran, or rather about Libya. So there is certainly that on, we've seen that in presidents, and particularly on the Republican side. Nixon in Vietnam and what he did, and the treasonous things he did even before he got into the White House. But that statement about when the president does it, that means that it is not illegal, has now continued on to the imposter now who pretends to be a president, Donald Trump, is doing illegal things by the dozen, by the day. I'm not going to use this podcast episode to detail every single thing, and that will probably come at some point. But the object of this portion of the episode is to talk about the fact that this November is not a sure thing at all for Joe Biden. Do not be fooled by all of these polls that are showing, oh, he's up by this many and he's up by that. Texas is a state where he's up by 1. Georgia may be a toss-up state. Florida, he's leading by 3. Polls are a snapshot of a moment in time. Those are near enough the words of pollster Cornell Belcher, who has been doing polling for a number of years. And I think people should really heed his words. They are a snapshot of a given moment at a given period of time. What that means simply is that on August the 8th, which was yesterday, the pollsters got results saying that 51% of people would vote for listen to me, Joe Biden in Florida, and 49 would vote for Donald Trump. That's just 1 day or 2 days over a 3-day period, margins of error. A number of these polls are in this window of margin of error, so the poll could be wrong 2 or 3 points either way. So the poll that shows that Joe Biden may be up 51 to 49 in Florida, for example, and I'm making that up, that number, with a margin of error of, say, 3, it could easily be showing that Donald Trump is up 51 to 49. So people really should not get hung up on all these polls. I don't care if the polls show that Joe Biden's up by 20. I don't care if the polls show that Joe Biden is down by 20. What the people have to do, what you have to do, is get out there and vote. That's what you have to do. These polls are done by people with biases one way or another. People lie to pollsters. We know that. Polls can misrepresent. And they're not the real thing. We've seen this with Hillary Clinton last time. This is exactly the same formula that's happening again here. During the summer where everybody's kind of relaxed, although this summer nobody's relaxing because of this pandemic. Everybody is on edge. Everybody is nervous. Everybody is stressed. There is a level of trauma. People are forgetting things. Heck, I've been forgetting things. You've been forgetting things. We've all had those moments. And it's not brought on by just, oh, well, I'm getting older. This is brought on by stress and trauma of the situation that we are presently in, particularly here in the United States. And the stakes are really high this November. I don't think you need me to tell you. You know very well that the stakes are high. As we sit here on August the 9th, 2020, we are 85 or so days away from this general election on November 3rd, 2020. And I think it is really wise that we step back and take a real look at what's going on with these polls, because polls really are not something you should be paying attention to. And one of the things that the media is not telling you about is the Newsweek story. And in fact, there's 2 Newsweek stories that I'm going to tell you about right now. The first of them is this particular one from earlier in the week of last week. The Newsweek headline from last week, I don't have the exact date, it's 3 days ago, which would have been what, Thursday? Thursday, August the 6th. The Newsweek headline, 50% of white Americans would vote for Trump if election were held today. I'm going to read this story, and it's not very long, but I'm going to read it because I think it's important. Roughly 50% of white voters would vote to re-elect Republican President Donald Trump if the election were held today, according to a new poll by Hill Harris X. I don't know who Hill Harris X is. I've not researched them. And I know it's a poll, and I'm telling you, don't pay attention to polls, but this is something I think you should pay attention to. The story is what I think you should pay attention to. Continue on here. Overall, the poll found that 43% of voters would choose Biden in a present-day matchup, whereas 40% would choose Trump. In a mid-July poll by Hill Harris X, Biden had a 7-point national lead over Trump. Now, I'm going to step out of the article and say, keep in mind, national polls mean absolutely nothing because the general election is not decided by the nation. It is not decided nationally. It is not decided even by popular vote. It's decided by the Electoral College, state by state. The antiquated Electoral College that was a function and born out of enslavement. That's what the Electoral College was in this country. So when people say, this is not America, this isn't who we are, the Electoral College defines who we are. Because in part, it defines who we are. Because that was a college born out of enslavement and representation regarding who can have a greater share of vote. In terms of the South as well, with black people. And that was what this was. And this was about enslavement. This was about representation and enslavement. And how much representation would those with people who were enslaved, who they enslaved, black people, how much representation would they have when they voted? That's what the Electoral College, this Electoral College was predicated on racist and racist things and enslaving black people. It was predicated on that, on the representation. Please study the Electoral College. And it needs to be scrapped. The Electoral College, quite frankly, is the only device that gives someone like a Donald Trump a chance. Even with the massive voter suppression that's been going on this year, that's been going on for many years by Republicans, that went on in 2016 by Republicans, I still don't think that story is being given the kind of serious scrutiny and attention in the corporate news media that it should be given. It just isn't. So I think that's a huge issue that needs to be talked about. Everyone's talking about Russia and China maybe meddling in the election, and maybe even Israel, and maybe even Saudi Arabia, but no one's talking about the Republican Party right here under your nose inside the United States that are really doing the most damage of all by suppressing votes, stealing votes, closing polling places, causing long lines. We saw it earlier this year, right in front of you. You saw this in Kentucky, in Texas, in South Carolina, in Wisconsin, in Georgia, and particularly in Atlanta. You saw this. This is not some surprise now. So I just want to say that the national polling means nothing. Back to the article. Although the poll showed Democratic presidential candidate Joe Biden beating Donald Trump in an immediate matchup among almost every other demographic, Trump led Biden among male voters 45 to 43%, Midwest voters 42 to 49%, independent voters 35 to 33%, voters earning above $75,000 a year by 48 to 39%. and voters aged 35 to 49 by a margin of 44 to 37%. Let that sink in. Let that sink in. And by the way, when that story is saying, and I haven't finished yet, but when that story is saying that Trump led amongst male voters, that's white male voters. All of those numbers are white males. And voters earning above $75,000 a year, that's white voters. And here's the proof of why, because the next paragraph says the following. Biden beat Trump among all other non-politically affiliated voter demographics. Biden's largest leads over Trump occurred in black voters by 65 percentage points, Hispanic voters by 22 points, both voters aged 18 to 34, and voters earning under $75,000 a year by 14 points, and female voters and Western regional voters by 11 points. However, the two political rivals ran very closely when paired among three demographics in particular. Biden led Trump by only 1 percentage point among Southern regional voters, voters over the age of 65, and voters with more than 4 years of college education. Roughly 3 to 7% of voters in all demographics said that they will not vote, while 5 to 16% of voters in all demographics said they weren't sure who they'd vote for if the election was held today. Seriously? I'm stepping back out of the article here. You're not sure who you'd vote for? This story was as of last week, last Thursday. You're not sure as of Thursday, August the 6th, 2020, who you'd vote for between Joe Biden and Donald Trump? Really? Where have you been the last 3.5 years? Back to the article. The poll conducted by the Washington, D.C. newspaper The Hill. Oh, there you go. The Hill, by the way, is one of these conservative newspapers, or at least funded by them and certainly run by them, and has it claims that it's, we're just covering The Hill, we're covering Capitol Hill. But The Hill is, it's a bit more conservative, but still, not to be discounted here. I'm just giving you an idea of what is going on in terms of who is authoring this poll and who's behind it. The poll conducted by the D.C. newspaper The Hill and the market research company Harris X questioned 2,850 registered voters online between August the 2nd and August the 5th. They did this online. Now, all these other polls that come out where you see them on television saying that they have this big lead, that Biden has this big lead, and he's leading by this and he's leading by that. How were those polls conducted? Were they conducted by telephone? Because if they were conducted by telephone, that is an avenue where the person who is responding to the pollster has reason to lie. He or she or they have a motivation to lie. They don't want to admit that they are racists when they say that, I'm going to vote for Donald Trump. This particular poll that I'm reading here from the Newsweek article questioned people online. Now, if the other poll did that, I don't know if they did or not. If those did, okay. But this one was done online for sure. During that 4-day stretch from the 2nd through the 5th. 4 days. So I think it would be very wise of people, because people are going to probably tell the truth online because it's anonymous in that way. Well, not anonymous, but it's anonymous in the sense they don't have to be heard. They can just click in or respond whatever way they're going to. So this is a lot tighter than we are being led to believe here. Biden has generally been leading Trump, and back to the article, in polls leading up to the November 3rd national elections. 2 late July polls of 600 likely voters by the conservative-leaning Restoration PAC found Biden leading Trump, Wisconsin, and Michigan. Leading Trump in Wisconsin and Michigan, 2 crucial swing states that Trump won unexpectedly in 2016. Well, that was not unexpectedly. That was voter suppression. That was Hillary Clinton campaign strategists doing a very poor job for her and her campaign, and having her not really be in either of those states for months, especially Wisconsin. And also the Russian influence and Republicans voter suppressing, as I said before. That was not unexpectedly. That was by design. Continuing now with the article, the polls showed Biden ahead of Trump by 11 percentage points in Michigan, 51.3 to 40.3%, and 12.4 points in Wisconsin, 50.3 to 37.9%. These are the late July polls of 600 likely voters. So we don't know if they're going to vote. So let me just be clear to everybody who is listening to this. 600 likely voters means absolutely nothing. Polls are not a signal to voters. You may think they are, but polls are a signal to the campaigns. That's what polls are. The polls are really a signal to the campaigns, not to the voters. Now, the voters may look at those polls and go, oh, well, maybe Biden has it in the bag. Polls, yes, they are designed to shape public opinion. But I really want people to pay very close attention to the reality that polls are about the campaigns and a signal to those campaigns. Look, this is what you've got to do. You've got to do more work in Michigan, Donald Trump. You've got to do more work in Wisconsin, Donald Trump. You've got to go to North Carolina, Donald Trump, and Ohio, Donald Trump. Because that's where he's been the last few days, if you've been following. Polls are a signal to the campaigns. Biden, you've got to go to Georgia because maybe Georgia now is in play for you. You've got to go to this state and that state. And that's what these polls are really. They're not really for the public. Now, the public's going to pay attention to them. And, you had a lot of people staying home last time around for Hillary Clinton. Oh, I'm not going to vote for her. Ooh. It's just insanity. And it's insanity that you would even have people saying, well, I'm still not sure who I'm going to vote for. Are you kidding? Do you not see what's going on around you? You've got people on CNN. Well, here's the electoral map for the Electoral College, and this is what it would look like right now. Well, we're not having elections right now for the general election. We're not having the vote right now for it. The first votes cast for the general election won't be until 5 weeks from now. States like Minnesota will get to vote on September the 18th. That's the first day that they can early vote in Minnesota. So why is Harry Enton, bless his heart, why is he putting up electoral maps in early August? Why? What is the function of that for CNN? We are still 5 weeks away from the first vote cast. And he's got these electoral maps showing Joe Biden winning 353 electoral college votes, and you need 200 and, you need the threshold of getting over 270 electoral college votes. That's really what you need. So once you get over 270 electoral college votes, you have won the election. That's what you need to do. 270 or bust. Whomever gets to 270 is going to win the general election. And you've got Harry Enton saying, oh, Biden has he'll have 353 electoral college votes if the election was held yesterday. Now that makes no sense to me. That may make sense to you. But not a single vote has been cast yet. That is why it makes no sense to me. Which also means you really need to get out and vote, and actually vote. Polls don't mean a thing. People can change their minds. People can lie. People can change their minds when they even go into the voting booth. There are people these people that I read about in this article that say, well, I'm not sure who I'll vote for. 6 to 8% or however many it was, not sure. Really? And those are the kinds of people who say that, but they maybe are sure. Maybe they're really going to vote for Trump. So there's so many different things that you must absolutely ignore and discount when you're talking about polls. Listen to Cornell Belcher and listen to me. But listen to Cornell Belcher, the pollster who's been doing this for years, telling you that polls represent a snapshot in time. That's all. It doesn't represent a snapshot on November 3rd, 2020. It represents a snapshot in time. At the time that poll was taken. In this case, or in these cases, August the 6th, or in late July, like those two polls I read about just now, read out to you. That's what it represents. A lot can still happen between August the 9th today, 2020, and November 3rd, 2020. A lot. We're seeing a lot happening. And I'm going to get to that in a few moments, but I want to just finish off the rest of this article. If Biden flips Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, and while maintaining the blue state, God, this is a poorly written article. Good grief. If Biden, I'm going to just rearrange this because it's not written well. How does this get on the internet? This is Newsweek. Good grief. If Biden flips Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania while maintaining the blue states won by Hillary Clinton in 2016, he would secure 278 electoral votes compared with the 260 that would be won by Trump. Ipsos, YouGov, and Morning Consult polls conducted in mid-July, that's me talking, among likely voters all found Biden leading Trump by at least 7 points nationally. Again, folks, nationally means nothing. Despite Biden's good showing in polls, Democratic Party members are reminding voters not to take anything for granted, especially since Russia is reportedly preparing to meddle in the election on several fronts, and Trump has generally been undermining confidence in mail-in voting. Let that sink in for a few moments. That's what we're talking about here. That's what we're talking about. Do not take anything for granted. And I think that that's the message that should be resonating with all of these Democratic Party operatives and pundits that you see on television. That should be the theme. That should be the message. That should be the message that resonates. It's not being resonated like that. It's, well, we still have to vote. You can't take things for granted. You have to say that a lot can happen between now and November, and voters should be out there voting and being proactive. And do not pay attention to the polls. Nobody comes on the air on any of these shows and says that, because, of course, these shows are the ones that put the polls on. So if someone gets up there and says, well, pay no attention to these polls, the chances of them being invited on again by the bookers and the director and producer or whomever is going to be slim to none. But so what? If I was invited on these shows, I'd be saying, please vote. Do not take these polls for granted that show Biden up by 10. Polls represent a snapshot in time, and that is what the message has to be. And you've got these voters again who lie and who, oh, I'm confused, I don't know. How could you not know? How could you not know? Look at what this country has become. How could you? It's always been like this. But look at how it's become alert now that you've got a lot of white people saying, oh my goodness, this is horrific. It took them, these white people in particular, this long to realize that this country has been in a downward spiral for hundreds of years, since the Native Americans had it stolen from them by force, and since they were genocided, and since black people were kidnapped and enslaved, and under penalty of death, as they were being murdered, forced to do enslavement labor for free for 300 plus years, and then all of this Jim Crowism and this racism and discrimination that continued on to this day and keeps going. And in 2020, you now have lots of white people pulling their hair out because now they see the Antichrist, the orange Antichrist, lying and cheating and swindling and cutting off their benefits and not giving a damn about the bounties that his buddy Putin is putting on American military personnel's heads. Some of them, they maybe know these families and these military personnel who are their sons and daughters. I mean, they're now waking up, right? After all this time. They've woken up before. But this is serious for them now. This is serious for everybody. And now, finally, people of all stripes, so to speak, are seeing what is ahead of them. If they do not participate in this vote, you see that this guy is slowing down your mail. Your mail is being slowed down. Does that not bother you? Those people who are saying, to those who are saying, oh, I'm undecided, I don't know. Do you not see what's going on? You got a corrupt postmaster general with no experience who donated millions of dollars to Trump. He's now the postmaster general and he's slowing down the mail. That's a violation of federal law. You are slowing down communications. That is quite frankly, a violation of the First Amendment. The post office serves as a communication vehicle. That is a vehicle for communication. They are participating in a communication process. That's what the post office is about. It delivers communications to you. That's what the mail is. It's a piece of communication. It's not as fast as email. It's not as fast as Twitter. But it is a communication. And that is part of speech. That is part of the First Amendment. And what you're seeing is the Postmaster General destroying that, obstructing that. How could you be undecided? You got this guy lying to you every day. He's done nothing on this coronavirus, and people, 165,000 people and counting, are dying. And as I said, I think it's a lot more than 165,000. I think it's more like 500,000. For a virus this contagious and this dangerous, this guy sat on his hands. He told you to inject bleach into yourself. Really? You have no idea who you're going to vote for? I mean, I know that Joe Biden ain't perfect. For sure he's not. But there's never a perfect candidate. I may have issues with Joe Biden, as may you. But really? You have a problem deciding between Joe Biden and Donald Trump? Good grief. Guy sat on his hands while people died in this country and lied about this virus. Oh, it's going to go away by April when it gets warmer. And the rates are skyrocketing through the roof now. It is what it is. I take no responsibility at all. John Lewis, well, he didn't come to my inauguration. He didn't come to my State of the Union address. I mean, are you serious? Is that what we've come to? You got Nazis in the streets. He's defending Nazis, calling them good people in Charlottesville. You got Nazis yesterday in Indiana handing out flyers. Newsweek reported on that story as well. 8-8, which is a Hitler, which is a Nazi identification. Please do your research. You've got these Nazis in Indiana, the heartbeat of the Klan, no less, handing out political applications in the streets. What will it take to get you to wake up? What will it take? You've got brown people in camps, in concentration camps in this country. That's what Trump did. He put them in camps, and many people didn't say a darn thing about it. You know, there were a lot of people in this country who didn't care. There were some white people that said something. A lot of them did not, though. And there's some black folk that were silent about this too. Come on, folks. It's time to wake up here. Nazi applications are being handed out in Indiana. That's a Newsweek story. By Khalida Rahman on August the 9th, today, 2020. That's the headline, as I said. Nazi political applications are being handed out in Indiana. Nazi political applications, political party applications, are being handed out by men wearing Nazi flag armbands in Indiana this weekend, according to a viral post on Twitter, which I have retweeted myself here, at the Popcorn REEL. Twitter user at GoldVestaCOS shared a picture of the two men on Saturday, saying they were handing out anti-Semitic pamphlets and Nazi political party applications in Henryville, Indiana, a small town around 20 miles north of Louisville, Kentucky. The picture shows the men dressed in white shirts with armbands bearing the Nazi flag standing by a table covered with papers. And I'm telling you, and I'll just read the tweet from Goldvesta Coast, and I'm not going to read the rest of the article. You can read that. Nazis in Henryville, Indiana today, near Louisville, Kentucky, handing out anti-Semitic pamphlets and Nazi political party applications. The woman was there too, and apparently one of them, these two men, one of them is a Marine. A United States Marine. I'm so disgusted these people live here. Well, let me tell you something. That's the tweet. Let me tell you something. These people have been living here forever. Hitler got a lot of his propaganda and a lot of his insignia from the United States, from the Klan. These people have always been here, before World War II, after World War II, and frankly, they're still going to be here after Donald Trump is drummed out of office. I think that Donald Trump is going to lose heavily, but we have to vote and turn out in unprecedented numbers. Think about what Donald Trump is doing to block you from voting or to rig the election that he projects so much upon the Democrats. That's his MO. He loves to project. He's got Kanye West in this darn race, taking advantage of a mentally ill person who is just lost. This guy is lost, and I'm not going to go into Kanye West again. He's got Republicans doing that for him. He's got Republicans stealing votes. He's got the Russians involved. He's got possibly China and Israel and Saudi Arabia and Turkey involved. Now there's this libertarian that's talking, well, I want to be heard from. And she has a right to be in the race like anyone else does. But really, people are going to vote for a libertarian again, because there's always going to be some people voting for them. I mean, the libertarians through Gary Johnson got many votes. He got a number of votes last time. And of course, Jill Stein did as well for the Green Party. And Jill Stein was in cahoots with Vladimir Putin. I mean, there's a picture of her the year or two before the election sitting around a table with Vladimir Putin. And where is her ass now, by the way? Those of you who voted for her, what did you vote for? When you voted for her in 2016, what did you get? Is it white privilege that propelled you? Oh, well, I can just vote. I can throw away my vote. You can throw away your vote? And when they round you up and put you in a camp, then what? You got to stop thinking so selfishly and think about the overall future of the country you live in. Don't ask what the country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country. I seem to remember JFK said that. What can you do to make this country a safer and better place to live in? We don't need to get to a great place when we haven't even got to a decent place. And so I ask you once again, folks, are you going to believe the polls? Or are you going to believe what you see in the streets of Indiana, in the streets of Charlottesville, Virginia, in the streets of Portland with these police, in the streets of Minneapolis with George Floyd, in the streets of Florida where you've got white racists attacking women and talking about Donald Trump will rule? Don't you see what's happening to the country? Why do you think I keep reading portions of this book by Milton Mayer called They Thought They Were Free? 1933 through 45, the Germans. Why? With a swastika on the front cover. Why do you think that I read that to you? What? I mean, have you opened your eyes? Bernie Sanders had a rally this year in Arizona. It may have been Phoenix, Arizona. And you got some white guy in the upper deck of the arena. This is before COVID-19, believe it or not, really hit us. January 2020. And he's up there, this white guy, unfurling a swastika and giving a Nazi salute. You had the Oakland A's coach, not the head coach, but the Oakland A's coach, a bench coach or something, giving a Nazi salute just 2 or 3 days ago in Oakland, California. Don't you see what's going on around you, folks? Do you not see it? This is what the United States is. Don't let any politician tell you this is not who we are. This is who we are. It's based on racism and genocide and enslavement and violence. And come on, folks. And no one's come to terms with that. Nobody in the majority of the white population. Well, there are always exceptions. But I'll say the vast majority of the average white persons in this country has not even thought and given serious reckoning to where they stand in relation to all of this. You want to go and vote for the Libertarian? A vote for the Libertarian candidate or a vote for any other candidate but Joe Biden, be that Kanye West, be that a fly on the wall, be that a sock puppet, is a vote for Donald Trump. All of you who voted third party or you wrote in somebody's name, you may as well write in the name of the Nazi Party, because that is what you are voting for if you do not vote for Joe Biden this November or October or September. I don't know how much clearer I have to be. Ignore the polls. Get active. Check your voter registration. And do so every week through the end of October. Do it now. And demand your ballot now, since the post office is being slowed down. It's obvious who Donald Trump is. This guy is a criminal, and he's a racist and a misogynist, and he's in no hurry to grow up. He is 74 going on 6. Please open your eyes. Or you will be waking up in your local town, and you will be waking up to swastikas all over your streets. You will be surprised how emboldened people will get. You're already seeing it. It's out in the open in front of you. Welcome back. So are you a racist? I mean, I just spent 45 minutes talking about the kinds of things that are obviously accumulating in this country and have been going on for hundreds of years. Are you a racist, though? I wanted to do this the other day, but I'm going to do this now. And I wanted to do this at the event the other night as well, the I Am Not Your Negro event. And the question that I wanted to ask, well, 2 questions. 1, how do you identify yourself? If someone asked you, who do you think of yourself as first and foremost, and you only had 1 word to write down, or 2 words to write down, and you had a choice of those words, your race or being a human being, what would you write down on that piece of paper? If you were black and you were asked that question, would you write down that you thought of yourself as black first, or would you write down that you saw and thought of yourself as a human being first? And you can only write down one answer. You cannot write down both choices. If you are white and you were asked the question, do you see yourself first as white, or do you see yourself first as a human being? Which of those 2 things would you write down? And as for the question about being racist, how many black friends do you have? If you're a white person, how many black friends do you have? And I'm not talking about friends on Facebook. I'm not talking about friends on Twitter that you've become friends with in this pandemic. I'm talking about before this pandemic. I'm not even talking about Instagram or any of these social media platforms. or even workplace colleagues. I'm not talking about workplace colleagues. I'm talking about friends. You go to their house, they go to your house. If you are a white person listening to me right now, I want you to write that down on a piece of paper. How many friends do you have who are black? How many black friends do you have? And like I said, the definition of friend here is you've known them for a number of years, at least one. You've gone to their house, they've gone to yours. You've socialized with them in many different arenas. Gone to dinner with them, you've gone to a concert with them, or you've hung out with them. That's my definition of friendship. In this, it's a loose definition because there's other components that run a bit deeper even. But that's my rubric for informing your answer to my question. If you are a white person listening to this, how many black people do you have as friends? Real friends. I'd really love to know what you'd be writing down. Now you can tell me, or you just write it down. Just write down that number and be honest with yourself. And then the other question, the last question is, again, for white people, and again, black people can write this down too, quite frankly, because I hate this word. I'm not going to use it. And I don't like when white people use it, and I don't like when black people use it, or anybody else uses it. It's racist and it's demeaning. I don't buy this stuff about, well, I'm just reinventing the name. No. That stuff is out. No excuses. Oh, it's a term of endearment in the community. No, it's not. I know there's some black people who disagree with me on that, but look, we don't have to perpetrate and reinvent a racist name like that. Can we have a loving environment where we don't have to use any variation of that word whatsoever? Can you not do that? But my question is, back to the question. If you are white, can you write down whether or not you've ever used the N-word? You've ever said it? Whether you've said it to other white people or whether you've said it to a black person? That's what I would love for you to write down, yes or no, to that question. And there is no such thing as don't know. You know whether you've used that word or not. You know whether you've said that word or not. And whether you've said it to white people or whether you've said it to a black person. In your life, have you ever used that N-word? Are you a racist? I'll be back in a moment with the two states, New Hampshire and New Jersey. Welcome back. So, elections now, and New Hampshire is the first of the two states on this episode that I'm going to be talking about as we get now through. I think we're at the halfway point of these states, a little bit past the halfway point of the 50 states, or close to the halfway point. So, New Hampshire, and you have to go to this website, sos.nh.gov. That will bring you to the New Hampshire Department of State, New Hampshire Secretary of State. And you will see across the top a set of 4 blue boxes, one of which will say elections. You click on that box and you will see a number of different choices: voters, elections, running for office, information. And where it says voters, you can go to elections and voting division. You click on that and it will show you a number of things: registered to vote, polling location, etc., etc. The problem with this website is that there's lots of things on it, but it is still not easy to find what you need to find. That's my one issue with New Hampshire. The information is condensed, but there is no clear pathway to finding the portal where you need to register to vote if you are a first-time voter in New Hampshire. Now, it says that registering to vote in New Hampshire is easy, but apparently you can't seem to be able to do it online, because it says that you have to register to vote at your town hall before the deadline, or register to vote the day of the election at the polling place. No matter where I'm reading from their site now, no matter when or where you decide to register, you will be required to complete a voter registration form. So it seems to me very clear that in New Hampshire, you cannot register to vote online. You've got to vote, or you've got to register to vote at your town hall. And there is a way, and you'll see it under the tab, under where it says register to vote, you will see town or city clerk's office. You learn more by clicking on learn more, and then you will have to follow the prompts there to find out where your clerk is located. You click on the button that says click here. It's not an easy site to navigate. It's clunky. There's lots of stuff crammed in, but there's nothing that's clear, except that you have to register to vote either at your town hall before the voting deadline or on the day of the election. And I would not advise anybody to register to vote on the day of the election. That is just going to be a nightmare. I'm telling you, that's just not going to be what you want to do. That's just a very stressful enterprise. I guarantee something's going to happen. Something may go wrong. People may be overwhelmed. Some glitch may happen. You just don't want to put yourself in that position. So what you need to do, what you need to know about New Hampshire is that New Hampshire, if you want to vote to register to vote in person, you must do so between 6 and 13 days before election day. That's where these town supervisors meet. 6 to 30. So look, this is kind of convoluted, but if you're a New Hampshire voter, you will be familiar, I'm sure, with this. You want to make sure you check the website of your town clerk, which is what I was telling you to click on to find out who your town clerk is. Get involved now. Do this now in August so that you are fully aware of what your plan is. There is voter ID or valid photo ID. There's a photo ID law in New Hampshire as well. So look, you've got to really be up on this. No online registration to vote. If you want to register to vote by mail, the mail has to be received between 6 and 13 days before election day, depending on the town you live in New Hampshire. You see, this is what Donald Trump wants. Donald Trump loves and he wants this regulation changed in every state. He wants the deadline by mail to be, if you're registering to vote by mail or if you are voting by mail, he wants the registration deadline or the vote by mail deadline to be when the state receives it, not when it's postmarked. So what he wants to do is take the control of that from you and put that in the hands of the state receiving your ballot. The state can do all kinds of things. They can lie, right? They could, if it's a state that's friendly to Trump, if it's got a Republican in it. That's why he wants to change this provision that says, well, we must be able to receive these by the date it's postmarked. It's by the postmark date. So that if the postmark due date is, say, October the 30th, and the state that you're mailing your vote in ballot in is a state that gets that because of the slowdown of mail on November the 7th, it's perfectly okay, because as long as the postmark said October 30th, it doesn't matter. Because the postmark is the deadline. even if the state gets it on November the 7th, which is 4 days after the election. But that is what conceivably could happen in some of these states, which is why we're probably not going to know for sure completely who has won this election until maybe a week after the election's over. And that's going to be a week of havoc and chaos when Donald Trump is going to probably do some chaotic thing, and the media breathlessly, like, hound dogs, are going to report every little thing, and they're not going to do the critical thinking and analysis that needs to be done. There's going to be cheering and electioneering on all sides, right? But there's not going to be any cold, dispassionate analysis and critical thinking of what is going on, at least for the most part. There are some exceptions in the media. I won't name names now. So that's New Hampshire. A tricky website, to say the very least, and I'm probably being a little bit nice about that. New Jersey, not tricky, but nice. In terms of the website, you couldn't have and ask for a website that is a lot easier to navigate than this one. And New Jersey's, if you want to do New Jersey's, and if you are in New Jersey and there's a voter there, you want to go to state.nj.us/state/elections. That brings you to the New Jersey Division of Elections, the Voter Information Portal. This is a great place to go to. I mean, it's got everything you need on it. Everything. At the top of the page, you will see a blue banner. It's got a number of categories. One of them is registered to vote. You click on the register to vote. You go down and you see, right, where you have to go, what you have to do. There's voter registration application forms. The deadline to vote is 3 weeks before the election in November. So you just count back 3 weeks. I guess it's in the middle of October for New Jersey voters. You can click on an English or Spanish language form. You have to fill it out. You have to actually fill it out once you print it out, because it will not let you do this online. So that is what you need to do for New Jersey. You will have to mail that in. And you can register to vote at certain other places, but I would advise you to, if you're a first-time voter, print out the form, send it, fill it out, mail it in. Please do that. So this is really important. Now, if you want to check if you're already registered, if you're a voter in New Jersey who is already registered, it's easy. What you do on this same page, once you click on register to vote, you then go on the right-hand side of the website and you will scroll down and you will say, am I registered? On the right-hand side. And you just click on am I registered? And then you go to this voter search page and you just type in your name and information and go from there. It's very, very straightforward. And then there's a number of educational tools as well that I think are just absolutely terrific. I think this is really good. New Jersey's website is fairly straightforward. Fairly straightforward. They are pretty clear. And it is very clear that you will need to get on the ball on this right now. Do not wait for these deadlines. Do not wait. I know people do. I know it's something that's very easy to do. But you don't want to do that. You don't want to do that. Early voting begins, and let's have a look at this for these two states, because I don't think I mentioned that for New Hampshire. And the reason why I didn't, because New Hampshire does not offer early voting. So there you go. No early voting in New Hampshire. No early voting and no excuse absentee voting. So there's no in-person voting early in New Hampshire. God, dear. And I know New Hampshire's a Republican state and has a Republican governor, or did have at one point. I could be wrong about that. But the point is that New Hampshire is pretty darn restrictive. New Jersey, on the other hand, a different kettle of fish. You can vote early as much as 45 days before the election. 45 days in New Jersey. So you can vote in September for the October election, if I do my math correctly, for the November election, if I do my math correctly. You can vote as early as next month if you are in New Jersey for the November 3rd general election. 45 days before November 3rd. If you do the math on that, that takes you back, all the way back into September 2020, which is roughly from here, 3 weeks away. But whatever the exact date is in September for New Jersey voters, have at it. Vote early. You can do that in person in New Jersey. And the deadline, the last day you can vote early in New Jersey is 3 p.m. on the day before the election in person. So if you're going to do this in person, and I don't know about the mail situation there, whether they allow you to vote by mail or not, you can go and you can find out on their website. But you can vote early up until 3 p.m. the day before the election. So on November 2nd at 3 p.m., that is the last moment that you can vote. No later than that. That's the cutoff point. But do not wait until November to vote here. If you are in a state that does early voting, if you are in a state that allows ballots to be mailed to you, well, make sure you demand your ballot now. Ask for your ballot. Go into your local board of elections and ask for your ballot now in August. Believe me, if they won't send it to you, if they won't give it to you, ask them, when is the earliest time I can get this ballot? The mail is being slowed down. I need to get my ballot and I want to hand it back to you. And make sure you get an answer about that question, because you do not want to be left in the lurch. So those are the two states for the day, New Hampshire and New Jersey. Make sure you check your voter registration every week through the end of October. Thank you very much for listening to this edition of The Politicrat. I'm Omar Moore.